If you're ready,
I'm ready.
Perfect. Hello, Barry Alexander. After edited music video for Michael Jackson, played Stevie Wonder, Public Enemy, and directed some short movie and some documentary, Son of the South is your new movie that you have written and directed. The film is based on the Bob Zellner autobiography, The One Side of Murder Creek, a white Southerner in the freedom movement. How have you known and adopted this one?
How long have I known?
Yeah, have you read the book long before the movie?
Well, actually, one second, Brian. I've known Bob Zellner for a long time.
Okay.
For about 36, 37 years.
Okay.
So, and when he was writing his book,
Yes.
I was writing the script. Because I'd already heard all those stories.
Yes.
And I knew the stories. And I knew them inside and out.
Yes.
And, there was times where I read parts of the book, or I read the book, and there was things in there that I thought, oh, wow, I didn't know about that. But otherwise, there were things that probably didn't even end up in the book that I knew about. You know?
In a few words, can you talk a little about the story of this film?
Oh, yeah, sure. The film is about a young guy. 1961 starts in the spring of that year when this man, Bob Zellner, was about to graduate from college in Montgomery, Alabama. And a series of things happens to him in which the white power structure just comes down on him because he's doing almost nothing. He starts off with visiting a black church to interview Rosa Parks and the Reverend Ralph Abernathy about a paper he's been assigned to do at school about race relations. And the school has told him, well, you can't talk to black people about this, and he thinks, well, that's ridiculous. I mean, how can I not talk to one of the races? So he goes anyways, and then the world comes down on him, you know, and they want to throw him out, and then after that, and then that leads him into more discovery about what's going on with the civil rights movement, and he comes to a series of crossroads, and at each crossroads, he's got to look at himself and say, what kind of person am I? Where do I stand on this? What am I going to do about it? Am I going to do nothing? Am I going to walk away? Can I walk away? And what should I do?
What should be for you a good acting direction? What can you tell us about your work with Lucas Steele, Lucy Hall, Julia Ormond, Lex Scott Davis, Brian Dennehy, and Cedric the Entertainer?
Well, these are all great actors you're talking about, you know, and one thing that you do, and this was my friend Spike Lee's advice to me, is cast great actors. Cast great actors, and talk to them about these parts, but then let them develop it. Let them develop these roles and these performances, and let them go. Julia Ormond, a great, legendary actress, and she's English, and she wanted to play Virginia Durr. And Virginia Durr had this amazing accent, this incredible Southern accent, really from the turn of the last century. And it was a very tough accent. It was very sing-songy. It was beautiful. She talked like my grandmother. They're both from that part of Alabama. But Julia wanted to do it, and I thought, oh, brother, I don't know. And yet, we got her a voice coach to work with her on that accent. And Julia found that accent and delivered it. And believe me, I've shown this film in Alabama, where a lot of people down south think that most films shot in the Deep South, shot about the Deep South, the accents are just awful, and people, no, man, nobody has a problem with Julia Ormond's accent. And it's a tough, and so you're working with people that are so talented. and so brilliant and so hardworking.
Yeah.
And Hale, Lucy, just a joy to work with, and so smart. And man, she nailed this girl, Carol Ann. You know, and I saw Lucy do this on one day where she flubbed a line. I can't remember what the line was. You know, as Carol Ann, she flubbed this take, and she fell out of character. You know, as Lucy, and goes, "What did I just say?" And she went right back into character, and she was right back there. And just to work with people as talented as that, sometimes you try not to get in their way, really.
What can you tell us about your collaboration with Spike Lee on this film?
On this film?
Yes.
Well, you know, Spike read the script a few times. He gave me notes on the script as executive producer. And then once the film was shot, you know, he saw cuts in the movie, and he would respond to the cuts. And sometimes I would call him for advice, you know, and just one of the advice was about casting. And one time in one of those conversations, you know, he simply said to me, "Hey, cast the best actor."
Which researches have you done in order to create this movie? Some books, maybe, some documentaries on TV?
I would say that in terms of process to thinking from other things, you know, I've got to say that probably the biggest influence like that would probably be Southern novels, which would have had a bigger impact on me in terms of Son of the South, because there's a lot of great Southern authors, and so you see you look at what they did, and you see the cadence of their work, you see how they develop characters, and you draw from that. You know.
What can you tell us about your filming locations?
Well, you know, I really wanted to shoot the movie in Montgomery, Alabama.
Yeah.
Because that's where a lot of the story takes place.
Yes.
It's also where I'm from. So
Yes.
I know Montgomery really well.
Yeah.
And my family's still there. My
Okay.
mother's 96 years old and still there and still in great shape. And I wanted as much as possible to shoot in the real places that these things happen. So that riot for the Freedom Riders, when the Freedom Riders come, that's the real Greyhound bus station that they came to. That's exactly where the riot happened. You know, that moment where, very early in the story, where Bob goes to this church where the police, you know, it's a black church, and the police have surrounded the church to arrest them because they're white boys going to a black church. That's the real church.
Yeah.
The First Baptist Church, the Brickadate Church. That's the real church. And I don't know exactly which pew they really sat in that church, but the way that Bob described it, it was towards the back, so that's where we did it. And that doorway in the movie where Rosa Parks stops Bob and says, "Something bad is going to happen right in front of you someday. And you're going to have to choose which side you're on." Not choosing is a choice. That's exactly the doorway where the real Rosa Parks stopped the real Bob Zellner and delivered that line. I mean, and that's a powerful message coming from a living legend. And in 1961, Rosa Parks was already a living legend.
Yes, of course. What was the most difficult scene for you to shoot and why?
The most difficult scene for me to shoot. Well, the most difficult scene was really the riot for the Freedom Riders.
Yeah.
And the reason why it was so difficult was because we had very little time to shoot.
Okay.
The film isn't this film with $30 or $40 million. We didn't have that kind of budget.
Yeah.
So we didn't have that kind of time. We really only had a day and a half to shoot that scene.
Oh.
And we only had about 75 extras.
Yes.
So wherever I put the camera, every single extra was in front of that camera. Every single one of them. And sometimes I'd have to, you know, they would you know, they'd come running past through the scene, you know, and we say, go back, go back, go back. So they'd go back again, you know. And so it just feels like hundreds of people.
Yeah.
Feels like hundreds of people. And what we did was we choreographed the scene, and then over weekends before we shot it, we would rehearse.
Yes.
And we would rehearse with the camera crew, we'd rehearse with the actors, we'd rehearse with the stunt people. So we all knew on that day of shooting, this is the way we're going to move.
How your experience as a film editor helped you as a screenwriter and director?
Well, you know, as a writer, my career as an editor has helped a great deal because, you know, doing all these wonderful films with Spike Lee, you get to where you really understand, okay, this is where a scene really begins and this is where it ends. Sometimes, you know, you write a scene and you write before it actually begins and you go way beyond after it ends.
Yes.
And you discover in the editing room, oh, wait a second, this is really the beginning of the scene. And this is really the end of the scene. Let's get rid of this. Or sometimes it's this middle stuff where you think, okay, I mean, it's kind of like we've taken a detour here, and now we're going to come back to the scene, right? And so I think that my years, decades, of being a film editor, and being a film editor with great directors like Spike Lee and Mira Nair, has taught me, okay, if that feels like a detour, it probably is a detour. Let's stay on track here. Let's stay on track. And every once in a while, you really do want to get off track and just let something happen, like that moment where Bob takes the turtle off the road. I mean, you know, it doesn't help us move the story forward, but it tells us something about him.
Can you talk a little about how important is your film in the particular context in America?
Well, I think that the film is an inspiring movie.
Yes.
It's an inspiring movie to get involved.
Yes.
To do something. You feel something, get involved. And I don't think it's just America. I think it's audiences everywhere because these are universal issues.
Yes.
You know, man's inhumanity to man is nothing that America has the market cornered on. You know, this is a worldwide problem.
Yes.
And this is, you know, my film is a particularly American story, but it's a story that people can take from, you know, wherever they are. And, you know, what we have over this last year is Black Lives Matter movement in America. And you certainly see parallels between what was happening 60 years ago and what was happening today.
Son of the South was very well received yesterday at the American Film Festival in Deauville. Did you expect such a great reception in France?
I thought that the response in France would be good. I was hoping it would be good.
It was.
I was hoping that the response in France would be good. Now, did I expect as great a response?
Yes.
You can't expect that. You can't expect it. You shouldn't even think about it. And when it happens, it's a gift, you know, and you really think, wow, you know, yeah, we have done something special and something that speaks to people. And that whole audience is taking this movie away with them. And it's going to live for them. Even when they're far away from them.
Have you some good advice to give to some young editors?
Do I have advice to give to some young editors?
Yeah.
Okay, my advice to young editors is one of your biggest jobs is delivering a vision, the director's vision.
Yeah.
Most of the edits are going to be yours. Even a director who forces you to cut and recut and recut, no matter what, most of those edits are going to be yours. And don't hang so tightly onto something. Be open. You know, it's not the very first cut where you find a movie.
Yes.
It's in the re-editing of that movie where you really find it.
And my last questions, which are your current projects, please?
Well, I'm working on a film called The Provider. It takes place in Malta. We're looking at trying to do an all-European cast. And it's a dark fantasy.
Yes.
Very, very different from Son of the South.
Perfect. Thank you. Can I take a picture?
Sure.
Thank you.